Hey, my name is Mark. I want to talk to you some about how to jump a foil. Uh, it's been about a year ago now. A friend of mine, Matt, was like, "Dude, we should try jumping these things." And I was like, "Man, these foils are way too sharp. Like it's too sketchy. We can't jump a foil." And well, it's been about a year now, and we started jumping foils, and it's been super fun. It's probably the most fun thing to do behind a boat, I think. But anyway, like we've definitely learned a lot over the last year and a half. Things to do, things not to do. How to progress with it. Whether or not you're ready or not is probably one of the first things I want to cover. And then the other stuff I want to hit on in this video is some of the gear that's worked well for us. Kind of go over that. Go over how to set up a boat and get a wave that's good to jump and that sort of thing. And then kind of go over how to start jumping and like some of the stuff we found that helped with the progression with that. And Yeah, let's get into it. All right, so let's get into talking about the gear. We'll start off by talking about the front wing size. I think the three things you need to look at with picking a front wing are your size, the wave size you're going to be riding, and whether or not you want to ride a high aspect or a low aspect wing when you're determining your surface area, right? So I'm riding behind a boat that's putting out a medium size wave, and I'm about 205 pounds. And I've found that around 1,200 centimeters with a lower aspect wing seems to be about right in the sweet spot for that. Like if you were lighter, 140, 150 pounds, you'd probably size down from there. And then, if you're heavier or riding slower, then size up from that. Lower aspect stuff's easier to land and recover mess ups and that sort of thing on. If you want to have a little bit more pump and glide in your wing, but you also want to jump it, I would, size down a little bit with surface area. This is a MA1000. It's pretty, like aspect ratio wise comparable to a lot of the Axis stuff out there. And I found 1,000 centimeters seems to be like plenty of surface area to land on. But if you get too big with it, they end up getting, very wide, and it makes it hard to recover landings. Talking about higher aspect wings, 925. I'll end up upping my boat speed some because the staller speed's a little higher. This would probably be similar to Lift HA120. Any other like 999, Axis 999, or 899. You're upping your boat speed. The glide you get from these higher aspect wings is great, and you can jump them. They're awesome. It's just harder to land and recover on a higher aspect wing. So it's kind of picking whether you want that difficulty level or not is worth it for the glide. So if I was riding behind a boat that put out a bigger wave, I would size down. And if I'm riding slower or behind a boat that puts out a smaller wave, I'm going to size up with my foils. All right, let's talk a little bit about boards. I think the three factors that you should consider are the size of the board, the volume of the board, and the shape of the board. So size-wise, I personally liked riding a smaller board, but a bigger board is easier to recover landings on. Like you can imagine, there's more surface area when you hit the water. If you hit the water too fast or bad, or you need to get that push from the wave to get back up on foil, a bigger board's going to have more of that. Looking at the shape of the board, I think something important to look for is a lot of nose rocker. I found that the boards that I've ridden that have an aggressive nose rocker have done better with coming down and recovering landings and being able to get back up on foil. And then the volume of the board. The lower volume boards I've ridden are a lot easier to do deep water starts, anything you're towing up on, and it changes the way the foil feels. Like it just feels better being on a thinner board, honestly, and that's kind of my opinion. But talking about the top side of the board, I like using straps, and I also like using heel straps. So some of the more sketchy falls we've had have been, when your feet, especially one foot comes out and the other foot stays in the strap or something like that. So I don't know, 6 months or 8 months ago, we started using heel straps. And since then, I've definitely liked it more for spins especially, but flips also. And straight airs, yeah, I think so too. Tacoing is probably one of the most dangerous things you can do. But we're riding behind a boat, and as soon as you fall behind a boat, there's no moving water, there's no next wave coming, you can pretty much chill. So in the ocean, it's going to be different. But behind a boat, I've definitely liked doing this. Of course, it's all at your own risk. but I feel like this has made me safer. All right, let's talk a little bit about the boat setup. So I'm riding behind a 2003 Ski Centurion. This boat was manufactured before people really started putting like built-in surf tabs and that sort of thing to make wake good on one side or the other. Like wake surfing was pretty new at the time. So you end up using these aftermarket things called wake shapers. So there's a bunch of different manufacturers out there that make them, and you know, honestly, you can find a whole lot of resources on the internet as far as looking up the actual boat you have, and you know, or talking to people that own that boat and seeing what shaper is going to work the best. But pretty much the way it works is you put a triangular shaped wedge on the opposite side of the boat from where you're planning on surfing on, and that'll clean up the wave on the side that you surf on. And then as far as rope length, we're using, you know, standard wake surf ropes. Unless you're you know, getting up with two people, I like to use one short, one long. You just don't want a piece of rope that's going to be something that's hanging in the way where you're going to run into it or fall into it. You know, I like to throw the rope onto the boat just to get it up and out of the way. But the biggest thing, just make sure that, you know, you're not going to fall into the rope and get tangled up when you fall. All right, so real quick before we start talking about technique and setup and pumping down the line and stuff like that and jumping and everything, I want to like hit on 3 major benchmarks I think you should probably have in the bag before you start trying to do this stuff. The first one's just getting up, learning how to ride a foil, because that's a whole thing in itself. Controlling your height on the mast, you know, getting comfortable making turns and comfortable just foiling. Second being like learning how to ride a wave and actually surf, and that can be tricky too. So you want to learn how to like turn in and out of the wave to control your speed, and you know, move up and down the wave, learn where the power is at, and that kind of thing. And the third is pumping. Like pumping flat water is a super tricky thing for a lot of people to learn, and it takes a lot of persistence, and it takes a lot of cardio and muscle and stuff like that too. So I think if you got all 3 of those things pretty much in the bag, then I don't see any reason why you shouldn't start trying to jump and do airs if that's something you're interested in. The easiest way I know to start trying to learn the feeling of the foil leaving the water is with a rope in your hand, honestly. Like whether you're riding behind a boat or a jet ski, a good way to start doing this stuff and getting a grasp on it is just to hold onto the rope and kind of cut out a little bit toward your heel side, and then rock back and let you know you'll fall. I'd be surprised if you land your first one, but yeah, just get used to kind of rocking back and, you know, putting some pressure on your back foot and letting the foil come up and jump out of the water. On landings, you'll find that, you know, you have to kind of like the foil will kind of stall through the water, and typically the board hits the water, but I mean you can recover still without the board hitting if you maintain enough speed. But I think, you know, learning with a rope is a really good way to go. All right, so moving on to jumping in the wave. So the wave adds a whole new element to the foil leaving the water because you got a lot of variables. You know, you're combining surfing and trying to recover a landing all kind of into one. So first off, when I'm getting set up for it, I like to start back where kind of like where the white washes in the wave, about medium high on the mast, or, you know, fairly high on the mast. I'll let myself get, you know, stabilized. I like try to get a you know, good picture in mind for where I want to leave the wave at. And then I'll give, you know, a few good pumps, you know, 2 or 3 good pumps kind of down the line of the wave. And then usually kind of crouch down a little bit, getting set up for the jump. And then as I'm actually going to do the jump, I kind of dive the board down to get like kind of my max pop, and then rock back and jump up and leave the wave. Now, where the foil leaves the wave at, I like it to be kind of in the face toward the top of the wave. And then it kind of can depend on what kind of trick you're doing, but for the most part, my landings too, I want to land also in the wave, you know, kind of on the face of the wave or toward the top of the wave. And so the tricky thing with your landings is honestly riding away. Getting your stability back when you land, and still having enough speed where be in the right spot in the wave to have the power to ride away. A lot of times, I'd say more often than not, when I land, I end up having to give it a couple quick pumps or a pump or two, like to stay back in the wave and get my speed back. There's definitely times where I land and I'm still hauling, and you just land and ride and it looks super slick. And then sometimes you land and you can just barely save it, pumping your butt off and working your way down the line trying to catch the wave again, and it's worth it. And then other times you just stall and you end up falling behind the face of the wave, or you land sometimes too far down in the pocket. So like if you find that you're going fast and you're still crashing a lot, make sure that you're landing in the energy spot in the wave, because if you're landing too far into the trough or too far behind the wave, you're going to fall off and you're not going to be successful. I think I would potentially end up making some videos in the future talking about 360s and flips and stuff like that. But for this one, that was kind of what I wanted to focus on, was just all the stuff that we've kind of picked up over the last year and a half of getting air, and hopefully this video has been helpful. The whole foil community, ever since I got involved in this stuff, has just been so helpful with giving me tips and pointers and tricks and everything, that like I wanted to try to give back some. Anyway, share the stoke, and if there's any questions you have or anything like that, please hit me up.